is coming, I can feel it. The breeze brings goosebumps to my skin. Tonight the whiskey feels stronger. Gasoline on hidden desires. So I'll throw
Hello there, and welcome to episode 69 of Little Big Knits. My name is Selma. I'm your host, coming to you from Ottawa, Canada. Thank you for joining me today. Thank you for taking some time out of your day to spend time with me talking about knitting. And here we are for an edition in which I have 3 finished objects. And I also wanted to bring back a finished object that I talked about last time. And I wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about vests today, because I've seen vests in a lot of windows this fall season. I love shop windows in the fall when all the sweaters come out. And I've noticed a lot of vests. So I thought maybe it was a good idea to talk a little bit about some vests that I have favorited over time. And so I'll share that with you a little bit later. So hello and welcome. One little administrative thing, just a reminder that we have the Little Big Knits Connections Mal that's going on until the end of the year, until December 31st. And this is a make-along about connections. So knitting things for others, or making things for others, I should say, because it does include any form of making, either for others or with materials and patterns that have been given to us by others. So, and sometimes a combination of both. And that is still going strong. Lots of wonderful, wonderful projects in there, and a lot of encouragement, which is really great to see. So thank you to all of you who've been participating in that. And I hope you have been inspired by others and enjoying making for others or using up the materials that have been given to you. Because I feel like I like to use those, although I, at the same time, don't feel like I get through them fast enough. So, yeah. Before talking about any knitting, I wanted to simply mark the passing of the Queen by having a little cup of Earl Grey out of a porcelain teacup. And I don't have a lot of porcelain in my house except for this set, which actually there are many cups that my grandmother painted. My grandmother used to do porcelain painting. I have her tea coffee set that she made many years ago. It's got her initials on the bottom. And I know that the Queen loved Earl Gray tea, so I decided today's cup of tea will be Earl Grey, Twinings Earl Grey, in this lovely set that my grandmother made. I don't quite know how the Queen took her tea, but I take mine black with a tiny little bit of sweetener in it. Stevia this time around. My grandmother did a lot of porcelain painting. I actually thought that I should go through the house and get some footage, so I may just do that. And so the other person who passed away recently, just before the Queen actually, was Eisaku Noro, who was the founder of Nora Yarns. And I have to say that I know that he passed on the company probably before his passing to his son, so Nora Yarns will continue. But it really touched me because I thought, you know, what knitter who hasn't been around for a while hasn't knit with Nora Yarns? Nora Yarns were so present, I felt like in the early teens of the 2000s. Then there was a little bit of a dip, and I feel like Nora Yarns have made a comeback. And the yarns by Nora really are very beautiful. I've made two things with Nora Yarns that I can think of. One was a shawl that I gave to a friend years ago, and she uses it still to this day. And then my first crochet project ever was with Nora Silk Garden. So I thought I would just bring it. It's actually a blanket that gets used as a lap blanket watching television. And it was just a giant granny square. I had gotten some Nora Silk Garden, I don't remember from where, to be honest. And I had learned to crochet, and so I decided to make just a lap blanket. So it's about this wide, and it's just a really nice black lap blanket that I have in front of the television, and if I'm feeling a little bit cold, then it comes out. And we often use it also even, around the shoulders kind of thing. So yeah, so I have to say that, and I had put something up in my stories about Eisaku Noro, his passing, because it really touched me. And as somebody who was a force of beautiful colors and yarns in our knitting community. So I just wanted to mark those two deaths briefly in the podcast before talking to you about knitting. And one thing that I wanted to bring up was this sweater that I showed you last time. In fact, I was wearing it, wasn't I? And this is the Tulip Guernsey. And I told you guys last time that I was a little surprised how large the armholes were, because I had made, I had tried to make them to there, and they gaped a lot. Some of you talked about different ways of perhaps fixing it, like just sewing this up, which would make a really weird shape, I realized. Some people talked about knitting a little triangle and putting it in. A couple of people were like, who cares, just let it be. I realized that the whole sweater has drooped. And it's interesting because I don't think this has happened with the other two sweaters that I made out of the Lang Lino, but perhaps this was at a looser gauge, and so it gave more of a chance for the yarn to hang. But the sweater ended up being a little longer. So I am going to definitely do something about the arms, because I don't personally like that. I like, I want them to be around there. But I decided I'm going to sit on it over the winter because the weather has turned. There's no way I'm going to wear this at this point. And next spring, kind of like the Ellery, I'll bring it out and I'll deal with it then. I honestly think that I'm probably going to rip back to about here and then reknit it. That's my feeling right now. We'll see. I'll try it on in the spring. I might change my mind and go, nope, this is great. But yeah, I just wanted to say thank you for all the comments and all the suggestions. And I think I will sit on it and decide next spring when I bring it out how I feel about it. But it also felt like the sweater's a little longer than I had wanted it to be. So at the very least, I think I want to shorten it by about 1.5 inches. And I thought, well, maybe I should go back and fix that then too. So we'll see what happens with that. But I wanted to bring that up as well. All right, on to some knitting. First, I just wanted to mention, I'm probably going to have a wardrobe change, but I am wearing an older sweater right now that I made probably 3 years ago. This is the perfect crop top. So the tpct by Teresa Gregorio, who's also known as Canary Knits on Instagram and Ravelry. And this is a design that she made, quite a few years ago now. And it really is just a simple little crop top. I had made mine a little longer than in the pattern to be able to wear it with skirts. And I'm wearing it with a skirt that I actually bought recently and absolutely adore. And I feel like I want to make more of these tops to go with this skirt and a couple of other skirts that I bought. So I've been really contemplating, not necessarily perhaps this top, like I would like to knit this one again, but I've also been thinking, oh, maybe I should be, just making some little sweaters for skirts. And now that we're going back to the office more, it feels like I need to refresh my wardrobe in some way and think about work specifically in terms of what I knit. But anyway, this is great, and I often wear it with a kind of a plum jacket that I have, and it just looks really, really nice. So yeah, so this is the Perfect Crop Top by Teresa Gregorio. And it is a perfect backdrop. Sorry, my knits all went onto the floor somehow. It is a perfect backdrop for my first finished object. As I said, I got 3 finished objects today. And the first one is well, actually 2 of them are epic, it feels like. But the first one is the finished Giselle Shawl. Once again, this is a pattern by Cami Jo Knits, I should say. Also, her full name is Camilla Hoyer Adamson, and she designed the shawl called the Giselle Shawl, which is 2 triangles knit together, each requiring 2 skeins of yarn. The first skein for the last time was the Arctic Crafts in her single ply in Moody Mauve. And I ended up having to make the shawl a little smaller because I didn't realize this had a little bit less yardage. I think it had 370 about, whereas I probably would have needed more like 400, 420 to make the full shawl. So I did a repeat less, but it uses about 2 skeins for the first part and then another 2 skeins of mohair for the other, 2 50-gram skeins of mohair. Although I probably have about 15 grams left. Is it even? Yeah, I think so. Anyway, I finally finished this thing. Absolutely loved making this. Absolutely loved making this. I got a little bit bored with the garter, and then it went into this lovely simple lace in the mohair, and it just goes, it's just so beautiful. And the weather has been the kind of weather where I've actually worn it a little bit just over something, and it's so beautiful. And then the burgundy will peek through here and there, and it kind of, my nails ended up being a similar choice this time. And yeah, I'm so in love with this, I can't tell you. So just a reminder that was Arctic Crafts, was the single ply merino, and then this was a mohair silk base from Camilla from Cami Jo Knits, from her website, and this was the pink lilac color. And I have ordered more of this in her mega mohair because I decided she has a cardigan based on this stitch pattern, which I so enjoyed doing. It was really, really addictive. I loved knitting it. And she's got a cardigan pattern coming out, not yet released, that I'm getting mohair for. So yeah, so this project, an absolute delight. I could see myself making another one at some point in the future, in really different colors. I could see something in a little bit more moody and darker, or I don't know, we'll see. But for now, I'm just really enjoying this one a lot. So yeah, absolute delight to make, and really, really looking forward to wearing this. And it's interesting because I think that I tend to have more sort of pinks, purples, and grays in the winter time, and I think it'll suit really, really well. So, and because of the mohair, it's actually, it's obviously a lighter feeling shawl and gives just a pleasant warmth. So really, really nice. Great design, Camilla, and wonderful yarns, Bente and Camilla, and There we go. And by the way, I forgot to mention the yarn on this one. This is Martushka Yarns. Unfortunately, Marta is not dyeing yarns anymore, but this was a beautiful 2 skeins it took to make this sweater. And yeah, it's a great color that I really enjoy. All right, so now I'm going to come back with a new sweater on. All right, so here I am again with a few pieces of fluff that I need to take off my face because I'm wearing more mohair. There's a lot of mohair in my life today. So I finally finished the Fairy Bouquet. This is a design by Joanna Ang, and you have seen it a few times on the podcast, and I finally finished it. And wow, I have to say, once I got going on these beautiful sleeves on this design, I could not stop. And I had decided, I started this sweater in the spring and then put it aside, and I thought I'm going to finish it for the fall. And I'm so glad I did. I'm really looking forward to wearing this. So the Fairy Bouquet by Joanna Ang. I knit this in a strand of fingering weight yarns by Fine Fish Yarns, also a dyer who's no longer dyeing yarn, in a glorious sort of speckled yarn, and then a strand of undyed mohair from Acme Fibers. And I'm just going to give a stand up to, it was folded, so I'm afraid it is got a little bit of a wrinkle there, but it's just a super pretty fit. Look at the detail on that. I honestly think this may be the most beautiful thing. These sleeves are the most beautiful thing I think I've ever knit. Is it possible? Oh, I did make that beautiful cardigan last year that was also really gorgeous. Maybe they're in competition with one another, and here is the yarn. It had a little bit of speckling in it, just a little bit. And yeah, it is just a really, really pretty sweater. Very pretty sweater with just such beautiful details. My goodness, this was a lovely sweater to make. Really a delight and well explained. And I first thought that the sleeves were going to be tedious. I thought they were going to be tedious. They certainly were not. They were actually really fun to make. And I made no modifications to the sleeves. I made them as long as the pattern called for. Actually, perhaps a couple of rows shorter. I did a little bit less at the end because I was concerned that they were going to be long. They are, you do a lot of decreases here so that you end up with a good snug cuff so that it holds this ballooning here. But I didn't want them to be too long, so I thought I was a little concerned that they would be. But really, really beautiful. It's a tiny bit see-through, but not enough that that's going to bother me. I think with just an undergarment that is, skin-toned, good enough. And I think it'll be really nice with skirts. It'll be really nice with jeans or pants. And it is at a slightly looser gauge, not as loose as something as the ranunculus, so not as airy, but I don't feel like I feel like there's enough air that it's not a super heavy wearing sweater because it was knit on, I think 4.5 or 5 millimeter needles. So yeah, really enjoyed making this and am glad that the weather is getting cooler so that I can actually wear it. A beautiful, beautiful design. Joanna's designs are just gorgeous, I must say. A beautiful aesthetic. So yeah, I can't say enough about this sweater. Really, really enjoyed it. I remember I loved making the yoke, and then you go through the body, which is all stockinette, and then the sleeves are kind of exciting as well. So there you go. That was my finished object number 2. I have another finished object that I happened to finish yesterday. and that is the Caramel Fox Socks. Now, this is a pattern that is not out yet. However, Annina, this is a design by Annina Juuti, who's also known as Anni Juuti Knits on Instagram. And this pattern is set to be released right now. So it may be up. And if you are on Instagram, I will definitely post in my stories when this is published, and I'll be taking beautiful pictures of this. Well, I hope they're beautiful pictures. I'll be taking pictures of this pair of socks to put on Instagram as well. This is a sock pattern that is knit toe up, and it has a beautiful design on the front of the foot. And I think what I'll do is I'll just turn this way so that you can see it. This design goes running up the center of the foot, and you start it at the toe. So a nice, interesting feature. You may recall last time that I realized while I was podcasting that I had made a mistake and I had not continued. Can you see that? I had not continued the cable up the ribbing, which was part of the pattern. Well, I ended up doing the exact same thing on the second sock. And I realized mid-ribbing, I've done the same thing again. And I happened to be chatting with Annina, and she said, please don't worry about it. So I'm not going to go back and change them. I think I'll just leave them. But the original pattern does have a lovely detail of the rib on either side of the foot, going up the ribbing, which is really lovely. But I think it's for me, I get into the ribbing and I'm just on automatic mode. So it just didn't dawn on me. But the socks look equally beautiful. I made these out of beautiful yarn from Alley Cat Yarns in her sock base. I can't remember exactly. Just a moment. I'm back. Because the tag was on the other side. This is her smooth sock. That's right. I couldn't remember the name of the base, which is 85 merino, superwash merino, and 15% nylon. And Melissa dyes here in town. She is from Ottawa, the Ottawa area. And this is her copper penny colorway. It's just a stunning, stunning color. And yeah, I'm very excited about these socks. The yarn is so smooth. Smooth sock is the right name for it. It's so smooth and very soft. So I'm really looking forward to wearing these. So pretty. So very, very pretty. So yeah, so those are my 3 finished objects. The Giselle Shawl, the Fairy Bouquet, and the Caramel Fox Socks, which will be out any moment. Hello there, Selma of the future, because I forgot to mention, there's always something. There's always a little something that I forget to mention, but I didn't want to put the podcast out without mentioning that Annina is actually having a sale, a 20% sale using the code Fall of Socks. I'll put it down here. She is having a sale on her sock patterns until the end of October, I believe. So if you're interested in her patterns, please make sure to use that to get yourself a discount. So what have I been working on? Well, this was actually going to be one of my works in progress, but then I actually ended up finishing it. So I have to say, I've got a basket here. I decided to buy a basket to just keep my whips in because I find that they end up sitting all over the place. So I was at Winners the other day, which is a sort of a big kind of discount store, and I saw this basket and I thought that will do. Anyway, works in progress. I only have one active work in progress today because I was actively working on this, actively working on the one that I haven't finished yet, and I had actually started since the last podcast, and the socks that I showed you. So it's my current whip is in this bag by Lolubise, a French-Canadian bag maker, and I really, really like this bag a lot. And in here is my first project with Nutidin. This is part of the Unspun Heroes Cal that we have running right now, myself and a few other podcasters. It's very informal, and it's really only using the hashtag at this point. We haven't talked about having anything on Ravelry, so I'm sorry if this is a little bit exclusive. We haven't even talked a little at all about, you know, prizes or anything like that. It's really just being able to take this time to work with some of the unspun yarns that either we've procured or are procuring because we want to try it out. And I happen to have some of this Nutiden in my stash, and so it's finally getting cast on. And this is what I'm making, which is another design by Joanna Ang. I am almost at the part where I will separate for the sleeve, so then I'll be trying it on and hopefully it's the right size. It's a sweater that I'm turning into a vest. So I'm just going to have it as a short sleeved sweater that I can wear with in a vest style with a shirt underneath it. And it's got, the main attraction here is the arm detail. So another really lovely design by Joanna Ang, and I am using this color of the Nutiden yarn by Honer och Eir. Not quite sure how you say that. And this was a color called Sinnen that came out last year. I've got 2 plates of this, and this is where I am with the first plate. So I think I'll definitely have plenty. And I am pairing it with some Shibui Silk Cloud in the Vintage Rose colorway, which was a Julie Hoover special color that came out. And the two go very well together, I must say. This is a bit more pink and this is a bit more orangey. And so together they are creating, you know, a very similar color. And I think it's just going to be really, really nice. So it's going really well. I have to say, I kind of wish that I had made a small project with Nutiden before starting a sweater, just because it really takes a little bit of getting used to. You can't, well, if you're a loose knitter, you're probably less likely to have issues with it, I think, than if you're a tight knitter. I'm going to say I'm neither tight nor loose, but I definitely felt like I needed to be a little bit more gentle with how I was holding the yarn in my left hand. I had quite a few breaks when I was making the first shoulder. You start by doing the ribbing, and then you build the shoulders. And when I was doing the first shoulder bit, the yarn broke like 3 times or something like that. And it didn't break at all in the second one. So I learned it, but still I feel like now I'm in a rhythm with it. And I wondered if perhaps making some fingerless mitts or something like that would have been a good thing to do first. Because I do feel like some of my stitches are a little bit uneven because I was, you know, still trying to figure out how to knit with it. I actually asked another person how this acts when you wet it and block it, and she said it doesn't quite act the same way as a regular yarn because it's not plied at all. So I'm just going to have to live with the stitches the way they are. There are some that are slightly wonky, and that's just going to have to be okay, and I can live with it. So this is going really well. I'm enjoying it, and you know what? Just holding it, the warmth that is coming through this yarn is amazing. So I think that this is going to be a really nice layering piece for the winter with a shirt to wear at the office or at home or on the weekend or whenever. But yeah, it's really lovely, really, really lovely. There was an update recently for the Nutiden yarn, and I decided to hold off. I was really tempted. There was one particular peachy color that I thought was lovely, but I decided that I would hold off because I really want to see how this wears before I venture to get any more. So there you go. That is essentially what I've been working on. I have another couple of pairs of socks, but I haven't really touched them much lately, so I won't bother talking about them. But I will probably pick those up and finish those off in the next few weeks, or at least one of them. And yeah, I'll be back. So talking about vests, as I said at the beginning of the podcast, I had seen some vests in windows and I was really struck. They were, kind of loose, cabled or textured vests. They were both in either like an oatmeal or a light gray color. And I thought, interesting. People are catching on that vests are the best, in my view anyway. So I thought that I would share with you 8 vests that are in my favorites. Now, did you know that you can go and check out the favorites of other people? So you can find a person on Ravelry whose aesthetic you really like, perhaps you're friends with them, and you can check out their favorites and see what they've favorited. Now, I've been on Ravelry since 2009, and I have been one of these people who goes in daily to look at updated patterns. Over the last couple of years, I only look at my highlights. I don't look at the new patterns coming in, so I'm probably missing some, but I've been quite fastidious, I would say, about looking at patterns on Ravelry and spending probably too much time doing that, to be quite frank. But I've always saved patterns that I like with tags. So one person actually reached out to me recently asking me, do you have any vest recommendations? And I said, you can go and check out my favorites. You'll probably get many pages worth, but you could put in, I have tagged my favorites with, the weight of yarn usually and the type of garment that it is. So it's either a vest, a top, a cardigan, a shrug, a shawl, and then the weight of yarn. Sometimes some specifics, like if it's linen or mohair. And sometimes I'll have various weights because if it calls for fingering and mohair to create a DK, I would have fingering, mohair, DK as 3 tags. So anyway, you can go and check out my vest favorites if you like, and find a whole slew of them, or you can also just do that search on the Ravelry pattern page. But I went through some of my favorited vests and I thought these were some that were interesting to mention. So the first one I wanted to mention is a vest called the Hilma vest by Suvi Knits. And this is a worsted Aran weight vest that has like one cable going down the side. And it is knit in a light colored yarn. And I thought that was an interesting one to mention as one that one could knit for this season of vests. The second one is a fairly recent pattern as well by Petite Knit called the Sidle Pullover. And it's a more textured vest, also in I believe it's a worsted weight. I think it's 2 fingering weights together to create a worsted weight vest, or a slipover, as is called in that pattern. And I've seen many nice versions of this and have thought about making this one myself. The next one is called the Birch Bubble Vest, which is by Cami Jo Knits, Camilla, who designed the Giselle Shawl I showed you earlier. And she has a series of items made with this bubble stitch. And this one is a vest, and I just think it's absolutely adorable. And it's a combination of, I believe, fingering with a mohair. So it just creates this lovely, lovely look. So it's a really lovely design as well, and a nice textured one. This next one is a free pattern from You Knit Toronto, which is a shop in Toronto that produces free patterns, much like Espace Tricot does. And this is called the Sarah Vest. And this is really a lovely, I love the idea of this one where it's short, you can make it longer of course, but that it just has a very simple lace pattern kind of striping the vest. I think it's really lovely. And I believe that one, isn't it, also in a fingering weight with a mohair that creates kind of like a DK type of fabric. So you could just use a DK yarn if you wanted. The next one is a fabulous vest that was also designed in the last year or so, called the Reflections Vest by Heidi Kiermaier. If you watch Mega of Skeins of Dreams, she recently knit this in a stunning green in, what were they called? Quinson, no, not Quinson Company. Who are they? Anyway, and the yarn is called an Acadia yarn. And Mega made a beautiful green version of this and claims that what looks like very intricate cables up the front are actually not that difficult at all. So this is a beautiful, beautiful vest. The next one is the Perek or the Perech, I'm not quite sure, Perek vest by Orlansuk. Really simple vest. Interestingly, last year after I released the West Village skirt pattern, I thought I should really design a vest because I love vests. And what I had in mind was that vest. And when she came out with it, like just at about the same time, I thought, well, I'm not going to bother designing that because somebody just came out with exactly what I would have put together. A really, really lovely, simple vest. I've seen many great versions of that vest. The next one is actually a fairly old pattern. It came out, I think, in 2011. And it's by Bon Marie Burns, and it's called the Mondo Cable Shell. It's a really simple V-neck vest that has this cable going down the front. And I always think of that vest because it's it's just a really simple, lovely piece. So who knows, I may actually still make it one day. But when I thought of vests, I immediately thought of that vest. And that's been around for a long time. And then the last vest that I wanted to highlight today, oh, and by the way, the Mondo cable vest is also a worsted weight vest. And I believe the Perek vest was about a DK. The last vest that I just thought I'd mention today is the Lana vest. This is a fairly recent design by Irene Lin. I believe she designed this, I think it came out in 2021. And it's kind of exactly what I was seeing in the windows, you know, kind of loose gauge, loose fitting, and with some cabling on it as well. So I would say that is a really quite a typical type of vest that I'm seeing in the windows this year. But yeah, so I just wanted to highlight some of the vests that I've favorited on Ravelry, but also just because it seems like this is the year of the vest. So if you're like me and you really like vests, maybe it's time to knit more. And if you've never knit one, maybe it's time to knit one. All right. And apart from that, I don't think I'll talk about acquisitions this time. I will be, well, I do. I want to talk about one acquisition. And that was that I placed an order with a Farm to Cables yarn, which is a shop, an online shop owned by Dale, and Dale has decided to close her shop. Sadly, because it is a shop that I often go to look for ideas for yarns, looking at yarns, and I really appreciate the selection of yarns that Dale has. She carries a lot of European yarns, and it's a Canadian store. I'm hesitant to buy from another wonderful store called the Woolly Thistle in the States, just because I have been nabbed with duty and I'd rather not pay that. So I really appreciated the selection of yarns that Dale had, but Dale has decided that it's time for a change and time to close the store. So she's having a 30% off sale until the end of October, I believe. And so I decided to get 2 yarns. I decided to get a sweater quantity of the Retrosaria Mondim, which is a sock yarn, but it's a 100% natural wool sock yarn. And I had seen this colorway a long time ago and decided that I wanted a sweater in this. And so I thought, okay, now's the time to bite the bullet, because although I'm not 100% sure what sweater I will make, but perhaps this could be a nice sweater for one of my skirts for the workplace. I know that I wanted this, so I went ahead and got this. And then the other one that I got, and this was color, sorry, just to tell you, this is color 106. And the other one that I got was 3 skeins of this kind of natural gray by Sølje, by rather sort of Hillesvåg Sølje yarn. And I have no idea what this is going to become, but I thought, you know, this could easily become something for me, something for someone else. It's actually not quite my kind of gray. I'd probably have to add like a bluish gray mohair to this or something. We'll see. But whatever the case, I just thought, you know what, I'm going to support Dale and partake of her sale at the moment. And she's selling out. So if you are interested, you should hop on there, because actually there's another color that I want, but she didn't have any more of it. So yeah, this is the color called Lys Rødig Beige. There you go. And it's number 2136. So yeah, so that's not the only one I wanted to show you. So I will be leaving you at the end of the podcast with some footage from my trip to Espace Tricot, as well as some cottage. I went to my friend's cottage for the last time of the season, last swim on September 11th. It's definitely cooled down now, so I don't think I would venture into the water. But I went to Montreal Labor Day weekend to bring my son a few things for his apartment, and I stopped in, it's been scrunched in this bag, I stopped in at Espace Tricot, not intending to buy anything. You know how the story goes. But then I saw this. This is all the rage right now, and I have to say they had samples of hats knit in their new base, because they've got their own yarn now, and they had threads of this glittery yarn going through. If you watch The Grocery Girls, you'll know that Tracy has fallen hard for this stuff and has recently made a sweater with it. And I just loved the hats. And my friend Holly gave me a skein of a beautiful gray-blue yarn in the spring. And I thought, I'm going to turn that into a hat or a cowl. I haven't quite decided, with some mohair and with this, and it's just going to be this gloriously luxurious thing. But they also had another glitter yarn that I've been very intrigued by, which was this one by Kremke, the Stellaris. And so I got excited and bought this as well. And I ended up buying yarns to put together with it to make another hat or a cowl. Because I actually have a hat that's not far from this color that I made last year, the Mouton Noir hat. So I thought maybe I would turn this into something else to go with it. So we'll see. Those are two projects that I have for this fall winter to make hat, cowl, something for the winter when it's bloody cold here in Ottawa. Yeah, so that was a lovely trip to Montreal and to Espace Tricot. And yeah, otherwise, I have to say September has been a really, really busy month with mostly really good things. I went to see Pearl Jam in concert. Pearl Jam is a sort of rock group from the grunge phase of the 90s, whose music I just really love. I love Eddie Vedder's voice. It's the second time seeing them in concert, and it was grand. Loved it. And then also we had a festival here, and I went to see Sarah Harmer. She opened for John Fogerty, who was performing, but I specifically went to see Sarah Harmer because my friend's brother plays with Sarah Harmer, so we got tickets to go and see that. We stayed for a little bit of John Fogerty, but not a lot of it. Not last night, the night before last, I went to see Trevor Noah perform here in Ottawa. That's my second time seeing him, and that was an absolute delight. I just love Trevor Noah. I love his take on how he sees things and how he pokes fun in ways that are just really intelligent, I find, and witty. So that was really great. And also saw a fabulous movie called The Duke with Helen Mirren and Jim Broadbent. Saw that in the movie theaters, and it's probably streaming already. It's a lovely, lovely story based on a true story with two fabulous actors, and just a really light-hearted and great good news story that's just really well told and really well acted and beautifully shot as well. So yeah, it's been a busy month. And then this week I broke my toe. Actually, I was lying on the sofa because we'd had a little bit of I'm going to call it teenage drama. And then the next day I was really tired and was just lying on the sofa and had to get up suddenly to run to the back of the house, and ended up crashing, because my sofa's over there, crashing into this chair and breaking my baby toe. So I've been hobbling for the last few days, but it's feeling better and better every day. And my foot is like quite bruised, and I've taped my baby toe to the next toe, and it'll be fine. It's actually my 5th time breaking that toe. It seems to be prone to it. I don't know why. The first time was when I was a teenager, and it's just been broken here and there through my life. So I knew right away what had happened, and I knew right away what to do, and I will just tolerate it. But otherwise, it's been a good month and just a very, very busy month. I had hoped to podcast last weekend, and it just didn't happen. So yeah. And I had hoped to go to the Van Cleek Hill Frolic yesterday, but that also didn't happen. I had too many things going on around here. I want to go every year, and every year I don't. So hopefully next year I will, but I hope that it was a success for those who were there and vending. Next weekend, or in the next few days, on the 30th of September, I'll be heading down to Vermont to the Vermont Sheep and Wool Festival. I will be meeting up with Mega of Skeins and Dreams and Mel of Mel Make Stuff, and we'll be heading to the festival together. If you'll be there, and if you see me or see us, please say hello. I know that a couple of people have commented that they'll be there, so I hope that I'll see you, and I hope that you'll say hello, because you know what I look like. I may not know what you look like. So yeah, it's a 5-hour drive, and I may stop in Montreal or not, because I can go in that direction. And I have a few more little things for my son, so I thought I might go drop those off. But if it doesn't work out, I'll just drive straight to Montreal. To Vermont. I'm getting extremely excited about this. Got to make sure that I've got everything I need for the trip, and I'm very curious to see what I come home with, because I've made a bit of a list for myself. But you know how that goes. Sometimes you come home with what you said you were going to come home with, and sometimes you come home with completely different things. So stay tuned for next time, and I'll show you that. So that is all for today, friends. I hope that my technical issues didn't cause problems for the segment where I was sharing the sweater. Otherwise, that'll have to get re-recorded. But thanks for joining me today, and I'll leave you with some lovely footage, and we'll see you next time. Take care.
feel it. The breeze brings goosebumps to my skin. Tonight the whiskey feels stronger. Gasoline on hidden desires. So I'll throw my old lighter. This cigar helps me slow down, thinking back to all I loved and lost. My heart is full and aching strong, so I'll throw is ash.